The snow had started falling heavier by the time I pulled into the driveway. The tires crunched over the ice-packed concrete like it was groaning beneath me. The same wreath hung on the front door, faded, frayed ribbons still flapping in the wind. Some of the Christmas lights blinked like they were struggling to keep up with the season, or maybe just fed up with pretending everything was still glowing. I sat there in the car for a minute, hands on the wheel, breathing in the silence. You'd think after all these years I'd be numb to it, but walking into that house always felt like walking into a memory I never agreed to relive. I finally got out. The cold slapped my cheeks the moment I stepped out of the car. My boots crunched through a thin layer of snow that covered the path. And as I reached the porch, I paused. Just knock. You're not 16 anymore. Still, my knuckles hovered over the wood a second longer than they should have. Then I knocked, twice. The door creaked open and there she was, Mom, Eleanor. Same tired smile, same eyes that held too much and said too little. Hi, honey, she said, pulling me into a quick hug that smelled like cloves and fatigue. Inside it was warm, too warm, the kind of heat that clung to you, made it harder to breathe. I stepped in, took off my coat, and there she was, Delia, glass of red wine in one hand, lounging on the couch like she owned the air in the room. Look who finally made it, she said with a smirk. Not a hello, not even a nod, just that smirk. The house looked the same, smelled like baked ham and cinnamon. On the surface, it all played like a Hallmark card. Laughter from the kitchen, the clinking of dishes, the faint hum of holiday music in the background. But beneath it, the same old undercurrents. Dinner was already in motion, Mom bustling between the kitchen and dining room, my aunt setting the table, my cousin trying to get the dog to wear a Santa hat. I walked in with a smile, tight and practiced, and helped where I could. Delia's voice cut through the small talk. So Maddie, still freelancing? Must be nice having all that free time. I chuckled, spooning mashed potatoes onto a plate. Yeah, the clients keep me busy. Sure, she said, sipping her wine. Busy not answering emails, maybe. Nobody said a word, not even Mom. My cousin looked away. My aunt coughed into her napkin. I'd mastered the art of smiling through it, biting down words and swallowing them whole. The holidays had always been that way, cheer layered over quiet digs. Joy taped over resentment like cheap wrapping paper. Then came gifts. Mum always insisted we do it before dinner. I handed out mine. Small things, practical, thoughtful. I'd spent hours choosing the right ones, even on a tight budget. Delia handed me a box, wrapped in red with a white bow, her grin barely concealed. I opened it. Shampoo, conditioner, some frizz control spray, a note taped to the lid. For when you finally have time to care. A pause, that thick kind of pause where you wonder if anyone else felt the slap too. Then laughter, forced and shallow. Delia took another sip. Just teasing, she said. Mum didn't say a word, just shifted in her chair. I smiled, wide enough to hide the sting. I'd had practice. Dinner came next. We sat around the table. Ham was carved. Plates passed. My aunt, always the one to stir the pot without knowing it, raised her glass. To Delia's promotion, regional director at only 35. Applause, she beamed. And Maddie, what's new with you? My aunt turned. I opened my mouth, ready to answer, but Delia jumped in. She's doing her own thing, she said, leaning back. Freelance, flexibility. Sometimes pajamas all day, right? Another round of laughter, this one more genuine. I froze. That same table. Years ago, I'd sat there trying to explain why college wasn't working out, and they laughed then too. It was like a loop, a family tradition of shame. I focused on my fork, moved food around like I was part of the conversation. My mind wandered, back to the holidays past, back to when I was the one who always bent, always quieted myself to keep the peace. My therapist's voice came back to me. You can leave a battlefield even if no bombs are falling. I gripped the edge of the table. Delia laughed again, and I looked at her, really looked. The armor I wore all these years, it was cracked. My silence had always protected them more than me. Maybe I didn't want to be quiet anymore. As dinner wrapped up, I stood to help Mum clear the plates. She handed me a tray, and for a moment we moved around each other like clockwork, muscle memory from decades of hosting. Then, as I reached for the last glass, she placed her hand over mine. "You don't have to take it anymore, you know," she whispered. I froze. It wasn't just the words. It was the fact that someone finally said them out loud. The kitchen had gone quiet, save for the clinking of dishes and the hum of the dishwasher. Most of the guests were lingering in the living room now, laughing over desserts and second glasses of wine. I stayed behind with Mum. We were alone for the first time all day. She stood at the sink, sleeves rolled up, scrubbing a roasting pan that looked older than I was. Her back was to me when she spoke. "You've always done more than they give you credit for, Maddie." I blinked. My hands were in the soapy water, but they froze. That wasn't the kind of thing she usually said, not to me, not out loud. "I see how hard you try," she added, still not turning. "I know they don't make it easy." My chest tightened. I looked down, pretending to rinse a glass just to keep my eyes from stinging. There was a softness in her tone I hadn't heard since I was a girl, before everything got measured in disappointments. "You ever think of moving back for a while?" she asked, "just to catch your breath." I stayed quiet. "I could help," she continued, "with rent, even your debt, just until you get back on your feet." I looked at her then, really looked. Her face had aged more than I'd noticed before. The years had carved tired lines under her eyes, but there was something new there too, maybe guilt, or maybe she just wanted to feel needed again. The idea hit me like warm air after a bitter storm. Someone was offering help, real help, without ridicule. For a second, I almost believed it was that simple. I set the glass down and wiped my hands. "You'd really do that?" She nodded. "Of course, you're my daughter." She reached out and hugged me. Quick but real. I hadn't been held like that in years, and in that small moment I let myself feel it. Let myself imagine what it might be like if home could feel safe again. But the warmth didn't last long. As we finished the last of the dishes, Mum's voice came again, lighter this time. "It'd be so helpful if you stayed here for a bit. You could help Delia with the kids. She's got so much on her plate." My hand stopped drying the plate. I turned slowly. "What?" She didn't meet my eyes. "Just while you get settled. You're not working full-time anyway. It'd be good for all of us." And just like that, the floor dropped. It wasn't about helping me. It was about using me again. I swallowed hard. "So, the offer comes with conditions." "No, it's just, you want me to be her nanny." She winced. "Don't say it like that." I leaned against the counter, arms folded. My heart was beating hard, but I kept my voice even. "That's exactly what it is." Before she could respond, footsteps entered the kitchen. Delia. She was already smirking like she'd been waiting her turn in a play. "Mum said you'd help," she said, flipping her phone in her hand. "I'll email you the kids' schedules." "Excuse me?" I asked. She blinked, annoyed. "The drop-offs, the extracurriculars, the doctor visits. If you're going to stay, we need to coordinate." I stared at her. "You didn't even ask if I was okay with this." Delia scoffed. "Since when do we need to baby you into decisions? This family's bailed you out enough times. You owe us." There it was, the truth, ugly and loud. "You think this is help?" I said, voice low but sharp. "You think dangling money over my head while assigning me a role in your life is generosity? Don't get dramatic. You didn't offer help. You offered a leash." She stepped forward, voice rising. "You're lucky Mum even offered. Some people in this family clean up their own messes." Eleanor's voice cut in. "Girls, lower your voices. The guests." I looked at both of them. The kitchen, once warm, felt like a trap. Same as always. Smile, comply, bend. I thought back. Years ago, Delia got me a job. Said it was a favor. Said it would get me on track. 3 months in, she told everyone I was lazy, that I didn't fit in, that she had to pull strings just to keep me there. And when I left, she told the family I was ungrateful. That's what help looks like in this house, wrapped in obligation, served with a side of shame. I inhaled deeply and set the dish towel down. I appreciate the offer, I said calmly, but I'll figure things out on my own. Mum's eyes softened with disappointment, but she didn't argue. Delia rolled hers. Fine, some people don't want to be helped. I didn't take the bait. I just finished drying the last dish, stacked it gently, and placed the towel on the counter. No storming out, no raised voices, just a quiet line in the sand. I walked out of the kitchen and toward the living room, past the hum of chatter and leftover pie. As I passed, my niece tugged her aunt's sleeve and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Aunt Lurleen, why don't they like you?" I didn't stop walking, but I smiled, tight and knowing. It wasn't the question that hurt. It was how much sense it made coming from a child. They gathered in the living room after dessert, the air thick with holiday warmth, the glow of lamps and Christmas lights dancing on walls. My niece plugged in a thumb drive. The screen flickered, then photos appeared, one by one to a soft holiday melody. The slideshow had begun. I settled on the arm of a couch, careful not to occupy a full seat, hopeful I might see myself, once or twice, just one image showing me smiling, present, part of the memory. Eleanor sat beside Delia, arms touching, heads leaning close. I felt their closeness before the images even started. My heart pinched. Slide after slide played. Children opening gifts, pictures from family vacations, baby portraits, birthday cakes. But none showed me fully, not once. In one, I glimpsed a snapshot of the party where I brought the dessert, but my face wasn't in the frame, cut out by a rogue crop. In another, only part of my arm showed, holding a coat over my shoulder. The rest, me, was gone, invisible. No one gasped, no one whispered. They watched fondly, sentimental, as if nothing was missing, as if I wasn't missing. After the images ended, Delia rose with a small gift box. She handed it to me with a smirk. "We didn't forget you." Inside, a necklace, used, clasp tarnished, chain twisted. My stomach lurched. I recognized it. A photo years ago. She wore that same piece, worn and polished by her. Now it was mine, gifted with tone, with subtext. She said softly, "You always liked this one, right? Thought you'd appreciate it." Her voice full of amusement. The room resumed light conversation. I gripped the necklace in my palm, thumb brushing a link. I thanked her, words clipped. No one looked twice. I retreated inward. How many holidays had I sat here, helping, laughing, bending, only to be erased when the camera turned on? I remembered decorating trees I never saw in photos, wrapping presents I wasn't credited for, always present, always ignored. That's when clarity came. They weren't forgetting me. They were intentionally excluding me. It wasn't mistake, it was choice. I excused myself quietly and slipped down the hallway to the bathroom. My reflection astonished me. I was tearing up, but not with sorrow. Anger was there, simmering. I pulled out my phone and typed, "Start collecting proof. They rewrite the past." I stared at it. For once, I didn't feel small. I felt recalibrated, like I was gathering ammunition in silence. A quote echoed in my mind. "They won't give you a seat at the table. Build your own damn table." And that night, I decided I would. As I stepped from the bathroom hall, I heard Delia whisper to Mum, "Don't worry, she won't make a scene. She never does." I paused at the doorway and held my breath. The buzz from the slideshow had died down. Plates were mostly cleared, the last of the pie scraped off, and the scent of cinnamon and ham hung faintly in the air. The family began scattering, some heading toward the TV for a holiday movie, others lingering around the fireplace with wine glasses and lowered voices. I stayed behind in the kitchen, rinsing dishes out of habit more than invitation. Eleanor joined me, drying plates one by one. She wasn't speaking much, just soft hums of acknowledgement. Delia hovered nearby, acting cheerful, dropping empty wine glasses into the sink a little too hard. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I could feel it, some shift in the air, like the calm before something bites. I turned to grab a clean towel when I felt a tug on my sleeve. Briley, Delia's youngest, stood there with her arms crossed. "Aunt Lurleen," she asked, "how come they never ask you to come to family things?" Everything in the room froze. Her voice wasn't loud, but it sliced clean through the clatter. The clinking stopped. I felt eyes on my back. Delia gave a quick laugh, high and tight. "Sweetie, don't ask weird questions." But Briley wasn't smiling. She looked up at me, genuinely puzzled, waiting for an answer. My throat went dry. Eleanor stepped forward, gently ushering Briley away, mumbling something about bedtime. But it was too late. That one question cracked the veneer. I stood there, dish still in my hand, remembering every skipped invitation, every group photo I wasn't part of, every last minute we forgot to tell you. It wasn't a question, it was confirmation from a child, no less. The truth always finds its way out in their voices. Later, when most of the house had settled into smaller corners of silence, Eleanor sat across from me at the kitchen table. She cleared her throat. "I want to help you," she said quietly. "If you need it, I could offer something, money, or you could stay here for a while." She looked nervous, not firm. Her fingers twitched on the placemat. It was a strange tone, part hope, part apology. Something in me stirred. For a moment I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe she meant it, that this was finally the olive branch without barbed wire. Then Delia's voice came from the doorway. "That's very generous, Mum," she said with a smirk, "considering everything we've done for her already." She said it like she was narrating a tax write-off. My back stiffened. This wasn't about helping me, it was about control again. Leverage dressed as generosity. I'd seen it before. Offers made like ropes, tightening with time. I looked back at Eleanor. Her face fell a little under the weight of Delia's voice. She didn't argue, didn't correct her. So I sat with it for a moment, let myself feel all of it. The pattern, the repetition, the bait and the leash. I remembered a temp job Delia once helped me get years ago. Turned out she'd told the manager I was fragile and needed watching. I'd left that job humiliated, never told them why. Support isn't support when it comes with strings tied to your voice. I smiled gently. "I appreciate it," I said, "but I'll find my way myself." Eleanor gave a small nod, lips pressed tight. Delia huffed. "Suit yourself. Some people just don't want to be helped." I didn't take the bait. I stood up slowly, picked up the little box with the necklace they'd handed me earlier, walked it over to the side table in the living room and set it down. I wasn't throwing it. I wasn't storming out. I was just placing it back. No anger, just choice. I climbed the stairs quietly. At the landing, I paused and looked down. Delia was by Eleanor's side, whispering. "She'll cave eventually," she muttered like it was fact. I smiled to myself. Snow had covered the backyard overnight. Chairs I helped drag in months ago now sat like sculptures, frozen under white layers. I stood outside alone, coffee mug in hand, coat zipped tight, watching my breath rise like smoke signals into the cold. The world was quiet in that early hour. Christmas morning silence. Somewhere behind me, the house had started to stir. Brunch prep, wrapping paper rustling. Someone probably warming the casserole. I wasn't out here to reflect. I'd done enough of that. I came out to reset, to remember why I was still standing. They expected me to fold. They always did, but this year, I didn't come home to be a background character. I came to make the frame shake. I ran through it all in my mind. Every slight, every omission, every moment someone used my silence as their weapon, like bullet points on a chalkboard I wasn't going to erase. Then I walked back inside, calm and collected, with my spine straight like it had somewhere to be. It's the most wonderful time of the year, played faintly from the kitchen radio. The irony made me smile. Everyone was at the breakfast table, casseroles, bacon, French toast in a big dish with berries. Delia was holding court, as usual, tossing out ideas for next year's gift exchange. We should skip the whole drawer idea. Let's just all buy for the kids. Adults don't need anything, right? I actually think the drawer makes it more thoughtful, I said, clear but polite. Delia didn't even pause. Yeah, but it's easier if... I'd appreciate not being spoken over. The words weren't loud, but they landed. Forks stopped mid-air. Eyes flicked up. Delia blinked, smiled like she wasn't sure if I was joking. I'm just excited, geez. I stood up. I want to say something before this year moves another inch, I said, calm, steady. If help means shame, I don't want it. I'm not your project. I'm not your dependent. I don't exist to be tolerated. The silence was real now. Eleanor's voice rose behind me, soft but strained. Maybe this isn't the best time. No, Mum, it's the exact time. I'm not asking for anyone's approval anymore. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just sat back down and sipped my coffee like it was any other Saturday. Delia didn't like that. Her chair scraped against the hardwood as she stood. Well, she said, smiling with a side of venom, we all have our issues. You've just made yours a lifestyle, huh? She gave a sharp little laugh, turned to the others. She's the family rebel now. Watch out! I looked at her, just looked, no reaction. One cousin, Jenna, held my gaze for a moment, a flicker of something real. Maybe it was respect, maybe it was apology. The moment passed. Later, I was rinsing my plate when Eleanor joined me in the kitchen. She didn't look angry, just tired. You embarrassed your sister. I didn't look up. No, I just stopped lying for her. This isn't how we keep peace in the family. I dried my hands, folded the towel neatly, placed my teacup in the sink. You call it peace, I said. I call it silence that only applies to me. Her face shifted, hurt maybe, or confusion. I didn't stay to sort it out. I left the room before she could explain herself back into comfort. In the hallway, I pulled out my notebook and jotted one line. If they won't accept my boundaries, I'll enforce them without asking. I didn't come back to fight. I came back to stop folding. Outside the window, the snow kept falling. Kids laughed down the hall, but inside me the ground had changed. I walked back through the living room, caught Delia's voice behind me, low but pointed. She thinks she's better than us now. No, I thought. I just finally knew I deserved better. By noon, the house had thinned out a bit. Some folks went on walks, others curled up near the fire with their coffee. I stayed in the living room, alone, just me, the creak of floorboards upstairs, and the wind pushing snow up against the window glass. I could still hear Delia's voice from earlier echoing in my head like a splinter you can't reach. I sat quietly, replaying arguments in my head, adjusting the words I didn't get to say. A part of me wanted another shot at that conversation, something sharper, maybe cleaner. But I knew it wouldn't change much. The air inside felt charged, like it was waiting for something. Maybe I was. I stared at the phone face down on the armrest, vibrating once, then silent, probably spam. I ignored it, but then it rang again, same number. This time I turned it over. Trust Fund Office. My stomach tightened. I answered with a simple hello. A man's voice, polite but direct. Ms. Lurleen, I'm calling to confirm your position on the board of the R.A. Vernon Foundation. Your name was officially entered by Eleanor Vernon as primary family sponsor. We're finalizing paperwork this week. I blinked. What? He repeated it, slower this time, probably sensing I needed it to land. My father's foundation, not a donation, not a holiday gift, a board seat with voting rights. I stood up as he spoke. The room felt suddenly too small. Eleanor authorized this? Yes, ma'am. Privately, earlier this fall. It's been pending background review. Your resume cleared. We're just following up now. I barely said thank you before ending the call. I hadn't even processed it when I heard footsteps behind me. Delia. She froze halfway into the room, eyes locked on mine. What call was that? I held her gaze. The foundation, I've been added to the board. Her eyebrows jumped, then furrowed fast. Excuse me? It's official. She crossed the room in 2 fast steps. So you went behind my back with Mum now? I stayed still. I didn't go behind anything. Mum did this, quietly. Delia's laugh was sharp and dry. Oh, how convenient. You, of all people, suddenly have authority? I didn't respond. She turned toward the kitchen where voices were starting to rise again. Everyone, get in here. Lurlene's made her next move. By the time a few cousins and Uncle Ray had shuffled in, Delia had her courtroom voice on. She's using Mum for access. Don't think I don't see it. Positioning herself for, what? Control? One cousin, Gary, looked uncomfortable. Another, Jenna, folded her arms and didn't look away from me. She always needed help, Delia added, and now she's turning it into entitlement. I took one breath, then another. This isn't your money or your reputation, I said calmly. This is a role, earned, not gifted. Delia rolled her eyes. Spare me the monologue. Then stop, demanding a stage. For the first time, someone in the back snorted, not at me. Eleanor entered, smoothing her blouse like she was walking into a Sunday service late. I supported this, she said, quieter than I expected. I wanted her to have something that was her own. Delia's mouth fell open. You did this? You never told me. Eleanor looked cornered like a cat up a tree. Because I knew you'd make it about you. The room got smaller. I stared at Eleanor, and for the first time I saw her not as my obstacle, but as someone caught in the middle, someone who didn't know how to fix what she allowed, but it wasn't my job to untangle her guilt. I stepped away, slow and even. Upstairs, I closed my door, sat on the edge of the bed, and exhaled hard. The bedspread still smelled faintly like cedar and lavender, like old storage. I picked up my phone, opened notes, and typed a message to Delia. We can't coexist on delusion. Either we tell the truth or we don't speak. I didn't send it, just let it sit there. They think this is about money, I whispered aloud, but it's never been about that. I leaned back, eyes closed, breathing slower. Outside, the snow hadn't stopped. I opened the memo draft again, intending to delete it, but noticed something odd. The to-card field was already auto-filled with Delia's name. I hadn't typed it. Before I could even react, a scream echoed from the first floor, muffled, sharp, and not from a child. The scream from downstairs still echoed in my ears. I hadn't moved yet, just stood there at the top of the staircase, hand gripped tight around the banister, staring at nothing. Then my phone buzzed again. An email. I glanced at the screen. It was a thread between Eleanor, Delia, and a few cousins. I had been CC'd, but no one addressed me directly. The latest reply, your sister really held back not including her in our newsletter, might have stirred things. That word? Your sister. Not Lurleen, not me. I sat on the guest bed, opened the full thread. It was all there. Paragraphs about holiday traditions, kids' awards, career moves, photos, quotes, Delia's promotion, Jenna's wedding. Even the family dog made it. I wasn't in a single line. My pulse ticked in my neck, slow and heavy. Not even a mention of the board appointment. Not even a passive nod. They were speaking about me while pretending I didn't exist, and accidentally let me see it. I scrolled again, scanning every word, trying to convince myself I was misreading the tone. But I wasn't. They were talking around me like I was a rug under the table. Used, ignored. I stood and walked downstairs. The living room was dim now, fire still going. Cousins laughing at something on TV. I didn't speak to them. Eleanor was near the hallway, arranging some napkins at the sideboard. Why wasn't I in the newsletter? I asked, my voice even. She looked up, startled. Oh, Lurleen, we just weren't sure you'd want to be. Delia appeared behind her, arms crossed. Honestly, we already had enough going on. People don't want to read a novel. I looked at them both. You wrote about everyone else, even the cat. Delia smiled sharp. You didn't send anything in. I wasn't asked. You could have offered. I didn't realize I needed to beg to be family. The room quieted. One of the uncles turned the volume down. Eleanor stepped forward, trying to soften things. We didn't mean to leave you out. We thought maybe that I wouldn't notice. You usually don't care for attention, she said. Delia added, Let's not make a scene. It's a holiday, not a press release. I felt the crack inside me seal into something harder. You treat my life like a footnote, I said, and then blame me for the margins. A long silence, just the fireplace crackling. Delia opened her mouth to reply, but I beat her to it. I saw the email, I said, the one where you said, I'll include her when she contributes something substantial. That one. She froze, then gave a short laugh. Oh, please, that was harmless. Was it? She tried again. Come on, Lurleen, everyone's so sensitive these days. You talk about me while I'm in the same house. That's not harmless, that's deliberate. From the corner, Jenna's expression turned. She wasn't smiling anymore, just watching Delia, tight-lipped. I didn't shrink back, not this time. My shoulders squared, voice level. You've used silence like a strategy, but I'm done letting you write me out of the narrative. Eleanor's hands fidgeted at her waist. We don't mean to make you feel less than. You don't make me feel anything, I said. You just act, and I respond. That's over now. Later, I sat in Eleanor's old office, still smells like paper and lemon polish, and opened my laptop. I typed a message not to them, but for myself. I insist on inclusion not as charity. If I'm in this family, I will be seen, fully or not at all. I didn't send it. I closed the lid, leaned back. After a while, I walked back into the living room. The room didn't change. They didn't notice me return. But I noticed me, I said without raising my voice. I'm writing my own post. I'll acknowledge my work publicly. On my terms, I've earned it. Eleanor didn't move. Delia's face flushed pink, jaw tight. I turned toward the stairs again, calm, steady. At the top, I paused. From the hallway behind me, Delia whispered, low, sharp, to Eleanor. We'll just cut her off entirely. I didn't flinch. I gripped the railing tighter. The house buzzed with energy that didn't quite match the hour. Evening had come, the sky outside dimming to a soft winter blue. Most of the extended family was still around, spread across the living room and kitchen. Kids ran circles near the hallway, half-dressed in holiday pajamas, candy cane stains on their sleeves. Grown folks laughed, drank, argued softly. I stood off to the side next to the photo display setup Eleanor had arranged. My name wasn't anywhere on the slideshow file, but I knew what was coming. Delia hovered near the kitchen archway, keeping an eye on the screen. Eleanor had that tight smile she wore when she wanted things to look civil. But every glance she tossed my way landed like a checkmate was about to happen. Then Mavis stepped through the front door. She wasn't flashy. Quiet coat, calm expression. One of the cousins greeted her with a warm, surprised hug. Mavis nodded toward me as she passed, and something in me straightened. There was a sharpness in her gaze, not hostile but clear, intent. The room dimmed, someone clicked the remote. The holiday slideshow started playing on the big screen, music low in the background. First, old photos, Grandpa carving turkey, aunts laughing over spilled wine. Then the holiday portraits segment began. That's when it happened. There on the screen stood Delia and Eleanor front and center, flanked by cousins, kids, family friends, all dressed in coordinated red and cream, camera perfect, and I wasn't in it. Again, a few people in the room whispered, one voice, maybe Uncle Terry. Ho muttered, wait, where's Lurleen? Silence, then Mavis stepped forward. "Hold on," she said. "That's not the original." Every head turned. She held up her phone, tapping something quickly. This is what was actually taken that day. She walked toward the TV, synced her phone. The photo that appeared next showed the same group, but with me standing directly beside Delia. No cropping, no edits, gasps. A few people turned toward Delia. Even Eleanor stepped back, her face suddenly pale. Mavis looked at me, then at the room. I was there when they had the image altered. Nobody moved. "I watched Delia ask the photographer to take Lurleen out," Mavis said. "Said it was better for the family image if we streamlined it." Her word, not mine. Eleanor's voice cracked. "That's not—" But Mavis cut in. "Don't lie, Eleanor. You let it happen. I didn't say anything back then because I thought it was just one of those things families did. But then I saw the pattern. I didn't speak. I didn't need to." Mavis pulled up a second image, a group shot at Thanksgiving 3 years ago. This was cropped too. She was here. But when it went in the newsletter, she was missing. Someone from across the room said, "Seriously?" Another voice, "That's messed up." Eleanor's lips trembled. Delia's arms were folded tight, jaw locked. Mavis kept going. "I saw your pain, Lurleen. You didn't say much, but it was there. So I kept these. I didn't want the truth to disappear just because someone decided it was inconvenient." The room fell still. I didn't gloat, didn't cry, just stood straighter. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't the only one seeing what had been done. Delia finally snapped, "Okay, that's enough. It was a mistake. These things happen." I turned toward her. "A mistake," you repeated, "every year. That's not an accident. That's a strategy." Eleanor teared up. Delia was just trying to keep peace. I stared at her. "By erasing someone." Jenna spoke from behind the sofa. "She's right. I always wondered why Lurleen was left out." Others nodded. The ground shifted. Delia's face went pale. Eleanor looked like she might faint. I didn't feel triumphant, just clear, like something had unclenched inside me. I stepped back as the attention swirled around them. I didn't want their explanations anymore. I didn't even want their apologies. What I needed, what I had, was the truth, finally brought out into the open, and that was enough. I thought back to how long I'd lived in that silence, let them define me by absence. Tonight, that silence had broken. I didn't need to drag them into honesty anymore. They were exposed by someone who didn't owe me a thing. As the room settled, voices lowered again, drinks refilled awkwardly. I saw Delia lean toward Eleanor and whisper through clenched teeth, "You think this ends tonight?" I didn't flinch. Inside, I answered her back, calmly, firmly, "No, it's only begun." The morning after didn't feel like peace. It felt like the kind of silence that follows a storm, charged, exhausted, still humming underneath. I walked barefoot across the hardwood, careful not to step on stray ornament hooks or crushed cookie crumbs. The living room was a mess, half-empty glasses, torn wrapping paper, a forgotten gift bag under the table. It felt surreal, like a party had ended and left no joy behind. I stood by the window. Outside, the snow had stopped, light catching in the branches. My reflection stared back at me, older than I remembered, but steadier. I was still here. I started packing, folded my clothes with precision, not rush. It wasn't about fleeing, it was about closing a chapter finally. As I zipped the last compartment, I spotted something on the hallway table, a white envelope, the paper yellowed just slightly. My name written across the front. I knew that handwriting. Dad. My stomach tightened. I sat down on the staircase and with careful hands opened it. It started like him, plain, no fluff. "If you're reading this, I'm gone." I read the first line and my throat caught. He talked about the silence he carried, the things he saw but never said. About Delia, Eleanor, and the way I'd always been just outside the frame. "I saw how you were treated. I saw you disappearing. I didn't know how to stop it, and I'm sorry for that." His words didn't try to fix the past. They just stood there, bare honest. You were the strongest of all of us. I just didn't know how to say it then. And then the part that broke me. Take the love you deserve, even if it's not from us. You never needed our permission to be whole, I cried, but it wasn't pain, it was release. All those years I'd waited for someone to notice, and here it was, late but real. I pressed the paper to my chest and let myself breathe. The house was still quiet when I made my way to the kitchen. Mum sat at the table, hands wrapped around a mug of cold coffee. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying, just tired. She didn't look up at first. I read his letter, I said. She nodded, like she knew exactly what I meant. I should have stopped her, she said, voice cracking. Delia, I should have said something, but you reminded me too much of myself. And I was scared you'd leave and never come back. I sat across from her, no anger, just weight, truth hanging between us. I didn't want to lose another daughter, she said quietly, but I lost you anyway. Her words weren't wrapped in excuses, just raw fear. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. We just sat there, staring at two different cups, 2 different decades of silence. It didn't fix everything, but it opened a door. By noon, I was ready to go. My suitcase rolled quietly across the hallway. I stopped at the front door. No drama, no declaration, just one last look around. I didn't feel like a guest anymore, but I didn't feel like I belonged either. And that was okay. I stepped out onto the porch. The snow was soft beneath my boots. I didn't slam the door. I closed it gently, respectfully, with finality. Inside me, a calm I hadn't known before. I wasn't angry. I wasn't wounded. I was full. I was never the black sheep, I whispered. I was the one who walked through fire. And I had the scars to prove it, but I also had the strength. That night, I found myself in a small cafe back in the city. My coat still dusted with flakes, fingers wrapped around a warm cup. I pulled out my journal, flipped past empty pages and wrote, "Dear me, you survived what was meant to break you." I smiled, closed the journal, watched the world move outside the window. Then my phone buzzed. I saw the photo. The message read, "You were radiant. Coffee sometime?" I stared at it, thought for a second. Then I typed, "Let's do it."